Give it.
You got it.
I mean, we'll share the presentation
Sorry.
and the recording. We'll share with folks who wanted to come.
Okay, great. So you guys are ready for me to share my screen and jump in? All right. Oh, host has disabled participant screen sharing.
I'll update that.
Technical difficulties.
Should be good now.
Thank you.
There we go. Okay, great. So before we dive in, just for everyone that I'm meeting for the very first time, I wanted to say a little bit about myself and about Tugboat. My name's Jess Dawson, and I am the founder and director of creative development for Tugboat Consulting, which I started in 2018 after many years working in the corporate agency world. And one of the main reasons I started Tugboat was to be able to work with non-corporate entities that didn't have big, huge internal marketing departments that could help them do kind of this upfront work of figuring out, what are our goals and how do we get there? So this process that we're in right now, this research and discovery process that we build into projects is really kind of that bridging that gap, helping to really figure out what the needs are of an organization, get to know the organization really well, and then be able to help create those creative briefs and everything that inform all the work that comes after. So that's what we're doing today, getting information and digging in. So that's a little bit about me. Now let's talk about you. So this is just kind of to start us off a little bit of an overview of the project. We did a proposal for a brand refresh and a website design and build. And the way that those two things kind of work together is that in order to build a really beautiful website, first you need to have kind of like the brand assets to really get you there. And because MCSW has been limited to a mass.gov site without, all of this kind of space to, express itself as a brand, there's not a lot in that brand toolkit at the moment. There's just a couple logo files and a couple colors and really not much else. So in order to do a website project, we need to kind of expand that brand toolkit and build it out with more assets and more, thinking about how we want to represent ourselves so that we can do something that's really beautiful, consistent, and friendly. We also want to make sure we understand what your needs are for the website. So all of that is part of this kind of upfront project. So in this presentation, I want to take us through an examination of why this branding work would be useful, what the project process is and the timing of the project, a review of the goals and the needs of the organization that we've been able to identify so far, and then our next steps. And at the end, we're going to open it up for a bit of a Q&A so everybody can have some opportunity to express their ideas and comment on what we've got laid out here so far. And for some reason I can't. Oh, there we go. So here's our table of contents. We're going to start with some terms and concepts just to make sure everybody's on the same page. Some of these may be very familiar to everybody, and some of them may not, but I just like to make sure that we know we're all talking about an apple. When I say apple, just make sure we're all aligned. And then talk about the project and the process, and then a little bit more about this phase that we're in right now, research and discovery, next steps, and then our Q&A. So let's define some terms and concepts. So starting right at the very beginning, what is a brand? I start here because so often we think of as a brand as being, very corporate thing. It's a product or it's a service, but it's much more than that. It's a visual representation of ideas and culture, and it's a set of tools that help you to communicate those to the people that you serve. So you're also going to see us talk about consistency a lot. Branding is a lot about consistency and making sure that we have this very recognizable look and feel across all of the materials that you have. And then I wanted to just talk a little bit about the difference between a rebrand and a brand refresh. So a lot of times people use those terms interchangeably and they're pretty different. So what we're talking about is a brand refresh, and a brand refresh is more like a redecorating project. It's like slapping on some paint. You're updating your visual style. You might revisit your slogan. You're going to kind of set up a color palette, fonts, and some graphic treatments, but you're not fundamentally changing who you are in any way. It's just a moving around some furniture, redecorating. A rebrand is a total renovation. It's kind of a looking back at your strategy, your mission, and starting with everything again from scratch. So you can think of like Facebook turning into Meta. That would be an example of a rebrand, and we are definitely not proposing that. So what can a brand refresh do for MCSW specifically? One of the things that has come up is expanding inclusivity. So taking a look at iconography and making sure that the logo and brand materials are reflecting the audiences that we serve. Demonstrating organizational vitality. So having kind of outdated logo files can make it really hard to represent yourself in digital spaces that are always changing. So making sure that you have logo files that work in many different environments and also look like things that are happening now. Looking contemporary is a really big part of organizational vitality. This also, those top two do a lot for this one. So connecting to younger audiences, just making sure that you look contemporary, but also are inclusive of the values of a current generation are big steps towards connecting with more younger audiences. Clarifying organizational relationships. As we started digging into some of the materials for MCSW, we were seeing all these regional badges and different programs, and all of these are part of this bigger MCSW organization, and making sure that they visually connect to one another is part of that consistency that we've been talking about. And it also would help just clarifying the relationships, but it also helps with building like this sense of credibility and cohesiveness that I think is really important. And also amplifying the anniversary. So building a new anniversary logo off of the new branding will reinforce all of the goals above and be a great way to celebrate an invigorated identity. Again, with consistency, just going to keep plugging away on the consistency thing. It's one of the most important elements of branding, so it's going to come up quite a few times. So here are some examples of brand refreshes. Some of these are going to be very familiar to everybody. As you can see, there's sort of a trend towards just very simplified graphics in the branding world because they work so much better in all the digital environments that we have today. Some of them are very light. Starbucks basically just took this circle inside of its old logo and made that its main logo. I love looking at the Microsoft one over the years from 1970 something to current day. It's gone through a lot of transitions, and you can see how it's reflected the needs of the current moment in each of those brand refreshes. And then there's a couple of examples of ones that we have done. Here you're seeing just one version of the logos for the brand refreshes for Women's Funding Network and the Cancer Connection. But each of those brand toolkits actually has many logos. They each have a monogram logo that works in really small spaces. They have a stacked logo. They have a logo that's locked up with their slogan or tagline. They have logos in black and white, all the different kinds of environments that you might need your logo to live in. And we're going to talk a little bit about this too. And this is, an example of a logo that needs to have the bandwidth to work in a lot of different relationships. UN Women, you can see at the top there's two of its main logos. It actually has three main logos. That seemed like overkill. So these are the two main logos for UN Women at the top. They have their one with the type locked up with their icon to the side. And then they have one for smaller spaces like social media where it's locked up above UN Women. And then they have their programmatic logos where they've locked up their other main logo, the one with the UN badge included, to the different programs that they have operating under their umbrella. And then they have regional logos. And in the case of UN Women, obviously, they have a lot of regions to accommodate. So they've made that very simple in order to make it something that they can logistically accomplish. I'm not suggesting that this is how you would solve your relationships, but just as an example of how people do kind of solve this problem. Anniversary logos. So there are two main ways that people tend to approach this problem, and that is the side-by-side or the integrated anniversary logo. And you can see with the side-by-side, what they've done is kept their main brand logo and locked it up with an additional anniversary badge. In the integrated one, they've created an entirely new logo for the occasion that would replace their logo across all materials. I think it's good to take a look at this. And one of the things you may want to consider as for your particular brand solution is the side-by-side anniversary logos, because you have all the different commissioner badges. That would allow everybody to lock up with the anniversary badge, and it would be consistent across all of your materials. Something to think about. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the project and the process. I wanted to talk about this in terms of the timeline. So here's where we are right now. We're in the research and discovery phase, which, depending on how streamlined we can make it, would wrap up either in early December or late December. And once this phase is completed, we will take a look back at the scope of the project and make sure that everything is in alignment with the scope of the project, or make any adjustments that we need to there, up or down. And we will create a creative brief based on all of the findings that we will share back to MCSW for final approval, just kind of outlining everything that we've discovered, all the functionality needs for the website, all of the design needs for the branding. And that, once it is approved, will kick off the brand concept and design phase. That takes about 6 weeks, depending on what we determine is the final scope. And in that brand concept and design phase is when we will take a look at all the branding development. So any updates to the MCSW logo, the relationship between that logo and all of the commissioner logos and the programmatic logos, and the 25th anniversary logo, which would wrap up at the latest in mid-February. Once that's approved, we will move into the website structure and design. We'll have all of these wonderful assets. We'll have the fonts figured out. We'll have all the materials that we need to build out the structure and design of the website. Here's where we will figure out what goes on the homepage. We'll do wireframes to figure out the messaging. We'll do the navigation concepts. And then once those are approved, we kick that over to the development team, who builds fully customized website that looks just like our design files. Everybody's like super happy, yay. Once that's done and everybody's approved that, we will launch and test and train. So we do our launch. We test it all out before we tell the world it's there. We send it out to everybody. Everybody is really excited. And once the dust settles, we do a training with everybody on the staff who's going to need to keep the site maintained to make sure everybody knows how to update all the different areas. And of course, we're still here. It's not like we go away, but we want to make sure that you're able to do that without us if you can. So I built into this presentation a bunch of individual slides with more on the specifics of each of the project phases. I'm not going to dig into that right now, but I wanted it to be here so that I could share it with everybody. So I'm going to export this as a PDF for anyone that wants it. It will be available, and they can dig more into these individual phases if on their own time if they'd like. Okay, this is where we are now, research and discovery. We talked a little bit about this at the beginning, why we start with research and discovery, but I think it's worth talking about it a little bit more. Another one of the reasons that we start here is because so many organizations end up with websites that have been overbuilt for their needs. There's this trend towards getting these really intense Drupal built websites that have member login areas and areas for board members to log in. And what ends up happening is it ends up being very hard to maintain, and not that many people actually use it. When you look at the numbers of people that actually log in to the member login areas, they tend to be very low. People don't want another thing to log into, is what we find. So we try to make sure that the functionality that we're building for you is functionality that you're going to be able to use and maintain, and that you're not paying for some, functionality that just doesn't end up being used or feels like a burden. And as we said before, another thing that we tend to find is that non-corporate entities tend to have very limited brand tools. So we want to get to know you really well so we can find out what brand tools are going to help you the most. So you have a robust toolkit. You're not coming back and having to do this again in a year. You can really be set up for long term. And we do this by going through all of your materials, figuring this out having these conversations and just really digging in and getting to know you well. I thought it would be a great idea to frame our conversation by taking a look at the key responsibilities in the Establishing Act. So this is the Establishing Act, and then these are the ones that I thought we should pull out for the purposes of our conversation. And clearly, a really robust website should help with all of these. It should help for reporting on the status of women, informing leaders of business, education, healthcare, state and local governments, and the communications media of issues pertaining to women, serve as a clearinghouse for information, and promote and facilitate collaboration among all of these different organizations that you represent. So here are some of the findings that we have identified so far. I've broken them out into findings for branding, for the branding part of the project, and findings for the website part of the project. So for the branding part of the project, what we've really talked about are what things that have come up in the conversations that we've had so far and in the survey are that the color palette needs to be harmonious with the mass.gov branding. The purple, having a darker purple color is very tied to the history of the organization, and it also has the added benefit of being nonpartisan, but some more colors would be nice. The gender symbol isn't integral to the logo, but representing the full state is. The materials need to feel welcoming, safe, trustworthy, and they also need to feel authoritative, credible, vibrant, and reliable. The regional and programmatic logos need to feel more connected to the main brand. And the day-to-day operations folks have said that they would benefit from a more robust brand kit that would include a bunch of different kinds of logo files in black and white, all the different versions that we talked about. More colors to work with, a consistent font strategy, PowerPoint deck, templates, letterhead, logo relationships guide, that shows you how to lock them up with different things for partnerships, for commissioners, all of that. Zoom profiles, social media templates, and email templates. And of course, a 25th anniversary logo that will work seamlessly in this environment. We definitely want that to be part of the branding project so that when we come to the website, it feels like it belongs there, because those things are going to be launching at the same time. And for the website, these are the key items that have come up so far: that it be accessible, legible, and inclusive, easy to maintain and update, include opportunities to highlight all the events, priorities, and other kinds of news that come up on the homepage. So having like a very vibrant homepage that's got a lot of content that's changing frequently, so people come back, so they feel like it's a real resource. The ability to share resources that can be filtered. So using like a tagging system and categories to give people access to things that they can like then filter and really drill down into. Event pages that can also function as permanent pages, so they can show up on the calendar and then be archived with meeting notes, so you don't have to create them over again. Better highlighting and discoverability for all of the things that you're really focused on: programs, legislative priorities, partnerships potentially that came up, and more opportunities to highlight the regional commissions and their work. So for our next steps, we're going to move into the Q&A, because the next step really is gathering information from everyone here. And then we're going to work on developing that creative brief for final approval and revisiting the scope, and then kicking off the branding concept and design phase. So let's jump into the Q&A. And at this point, I'm going to kick it back over to Shaitia. Is she still here?
Yes, I see her. And I also see Leslie Ann put a question into the chat.
Oh, okay, great.
Sorry, this is gonna be I guess, Leslie Ann, do you have any questions? Because it seems like we lost the commissioner, but I see one of the questions is that we will discuss a word mark, was Leslie Ann's question. I'm not exactly sure I know what a word mark is, so I'll kick it back.
So first of all, Jess, thank you so much. I am just tickled purple, apparently, that this process is going on. And I just want to give a shout out to Ellen and Shaitia for ushering this. This is long overdue. And I thought that there's been a lot of discussion on the commission over the years some people take branding and identity, you know, as a key aspect of implementing a program or, you know, an agency, and others don't. And I'm just so excited that we're doing this. When the beginning, you talked a little bit about a brand refresh versus rebranding, and I would argue in some respects, we're a little bit in the middle, as opposed to just a refresh. And my question about a word mark is oftentimes people don't even know who we are. And it's not just because of our logo. It's because we're the Massachusetts Commission on the Status of Women, which is a mouthful. I work for an organization that's a really long name, Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, and it's always been shortened to be called WHOI, or the Oceanographic, and it's well known that way. I've often thought we need to think about a word mark for MCSW, you know, something like Mass Women, or something that's catchier and quicker, that is easily recognizable. MCSW, I just don't feel is, even though that's at the root our enabling name. So I'm really hoping that we're also going to build into the work the idea of a word mark for the organization as well, not just the visual identity. Is that going to happen? And you can tell I've done a lot of this work before. I'm not a professional like you, but I've been involved in a lot of these processes.
Which is great. I'm so glad you were able to join us today. And seeing as there is actually nobody else here now, I feel bad that I went through the description of the brand refresh and the rebrand. But I think that that's a really great question to bring up, and actually does lead into some other outstanding questions that I've had that we've been kind of working on getting to the bottom of. And one of them was like, does it need to be a circle? Everything's a circle. And I think that might have been because it was so linked to the state seal design. And so knowing what kind of flexibility we have there, like if we can kind of go in any direction, then a word mark is definitely on the table. And I would be very curious to know that, you know, like what is the kind of the reach of our creative exploration here?
We have one of our longer standing commissioners just joining, Commissioner Meredith Tuitt. You hopped in, Meredith, at the tail end of the presentation, but we're talking about, you know, potentially exploring a word mark for the commission. And also, if we're tied to the circular logo, if we might want to explore other ways that we can present our name and our title in other shapes. And I don't know if you came in with any questions, because you've kind of been looped in along the way a little bit, but that's where we are now. And we're going to send out the recording afterwards in case you want to check that out from the beginning.
Yeah, thank you. I'll listen into the, I didn't really have too much questions. I jumped in at the end too, so I had other meeting I was trying to finish up, but I'll listen to the recording and see. Will we have this presentation that
Yep.
Look, Sister Leslie Ann, you sound like my daughter. Can't find the charger. My daughter was moving from one location to the next, couldn't find a charger, jumped into a meeting and was like, I'm so sorry, my phone is about to die. But yeah, so
It's because I haven't unpacked from Egypt yet, so I can't find my damn charger, but I'm gonna go get on my desktop and rejoin.
You guys, did you guys feel the salt, the rub? She was in Egypt. Did you get that? You know, we weren't in Egypt. You could have said you just didn't unpack, Leslie. You don't hear me talking about I haven't unpacked from Disney.
Listen, I can tell you that Egypt was not Disney. Egypt was 3 weeks of hell work. So I would rather have been in Disney or here, actually.
Oh, I take Egypt. Yeah, so just if I can review this and look at it, that's fine. And just look at it and see where you guys are at. That's fine for me. I can honestly say that I am kind of partial to our logo, because even though a lot of people don't think it's aesthetic, I think it's a brand that people are very, very aware of. The ones that are aware of the commissions, it kind of jumps at them. So if we're going to do anything, at least try to keep that somewhere, and then whatever else we do differently, you know. But
so
yeah.
I'll just jump on Meredith's thing, and I'm still trying to switch over to my other computer. So if I die mid-sentence, I'll be right back. But Meredith, when my institution went through this, we had the very same issue with the logo because we had a sailboat, what wasn't a sailboat, it was a research vessel as our seal since 1930. And we did a rebranding. There was a lot of people who were like, we're well known by this seal, with the research vessel on it. And we shouldn't abandon it because that's how people know us. And so what the institution ended up doing was essentially relaunching with integrating the old seal, the old logo with the new. And so you had the option of kind of using both, but they actually worked seamlessly together. And over time, they sort of shifted more towards the newer one. So anyhow, just it's not impossible to do both, I think.
All
And
right.
Meredith, we did include in the slideshow, we'll share the recording and we can share the slideshow as well. The purple was noted. It came up in the survey, how beloved the purple is, that we're well known for it. It has the added benefit of being bipartisan, but maybe some more colors or flexing inside of that would help us.
Just for and a second, I'd like to share my screen again, just to kind of talk about this. Because it does come up actually quite a lot. People that are already connected with the brand often feel very connected to its branding, obviously, and don't really want anything to change. A really good example of that is this Cancer Connection logo development project that we did. So you can see that the logo that they had was definitely creating a lot of issues for them in digital environments. It didn't really work very well, and they had very few assets for it. But the spirit of it and the iconography of it was very meaningful to the folks in the organization. There was a rainbow and a sun and a moon and all of that. And so in the creation of the updated branding, we took the spirit of all of that, and we just built it into a way that works for today's needs. It's highly legible in smaller environments, but it has the sun and the moon and the rainbow. So we were able to kind of like take that and just update it. It doesn't have to necessarily mean that you're throwing away everything that you really love. You can often just actually make the visibility of it even stronger with just some updates for the contemporary world, the digital world that we live in today.
I can see that one, but I'm confused on how you would do that with our logo. Because to me, the Commonwealth branding is powerful. And and the gender piece. So, and the purple and white stands for so much when it comes to the suffrage movement and the women's movement. So that's where I'm stuck on that. But I'm willing to look, because I kind of, I'm kind of, like I said, because I do so much on women and girls things, the purple and white to me, and I get the steamship, the research ship shifting, I get the cancer shifting, I'm not a lover of Starbucks, so I'm so glad you didn't use that one as the example for me. But to me, I guess when you look at this logo, to me, it says it all. To me, it does. So, and that's because I'm in this nucleus. Everybody else, Leslie Ann and even Ellen and Shaitia, everybody else has a different lens. My lens is always going to be that purple and white, that women and girls, that and what I'm waiting to see more of is the Black piece of the Commonwealth, which is the diversity. See, I read the logo in a different way. See what I'm saying? Yeah. So there might be other creative, eccentric minds like mine that would see it as a logo that represents women and girls because of the colors, the peace and the purity, the Black with the diversity, the gender issues. You see what I'm, so however you work, I'm willing to work with the ladies because I've made a decision that this year I'm going to be more flow along with my sisters.
I can't wait to show you our options. And we also had a conversation, for what it's worth, about the gender symbol itself in the logo, if that is, as updated or inclusive as it could be, the state iconography. So We hear you loud and clear. I love that. I appreciate that feedback, especially the purple and white. That resonates with me too.
Yeah, the context that you're bringing to the current logo is extremely helpful and rich for me from the standpoint of creating a creative brief that we could work off of. And it's context that I haven't had yet. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No worries, thank you, yeah. And Leslie Ann Canal, and I agree with the gender thing, because now we are, you know, we have non-binary, we had, I can't even remember them all, you know. I struggle, as you can see, I don't even do pronouns, you know. but just you know, I just wanted you guys to see where what I see when I look at it. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's really important, you know, not that I wouldn't think anything you say is important, I do all the time, but it is a different context of a way people view things, especially, I mean, I think that the purple and the white, and even the black it's well known by us, but it doesn't necessarily need to mean that it has to be exactly the same. It can hearken to that and still have that identity while being more modern. I look at this as, well, purple's always been my favorite color, so I've never had a problem with the purple, but I look at this more as state agency and less of a movement. And I think that, you know, there's been so much related to the work that we've done and the wonderful work that you've done, Meredith, over the years. It's more of a, you know, trying to mark a movement or a revolution. And this just seems a little too staid for me. And that's why I asked about a word mark, because I don't think we ever want to lose the Massachusetts Commission on the Status of Women, because it gives us a legitimacy that is, you know, defined by state, you know, statute. But that being said, it's not catchy enough. It's not quick enough. It's not, you know, there's a reason why people use certain adages in this state that connect it with something real, that actually takes that legitimacy and power. And I think we need to take more power. And so if we were something like Mass Women, then like, we're it. We've got the power. Like, let's do it, you know? That's why I really want to see us talk about word mark as well as logo and colors.
Yeah.
And that's,
Oh, sorry.
just to underscore that, that's actually our shorthand website, mass.gov/gov. I'm sorry, mass.gov/women redirects right to us.
Yeah. Yeah, the emphasis, the girls, I know the women, the girls have always been subliminal, always been in the background for years and years. And we're finally pulling them to the front, to the point where a lot of our GSOs are now excited that we're using girls somewhere. So just if it's a thought, being able to put our young sisters in there somehow, you know, that it's not just women, it's women and girls, because before we have successful women, we have to create successful young women, you know. So even if we watermark it, I don't know how, you know.
I think though, Meredith, also, do you remember, I know Ruth did, because she ran Girl Scouts of Massachusetts, but I thought that their campaign that they did was just genius, you know, where they used words that had HER in it.
Yeah.
And you know, they owned it, right?
Yeah.
And you know, maybe HER is a little controversial at this point in time, to your point about pronouns, but you know, maybe we just have to own it more. I don't feel like our current branding owns anything other than purple.
Yeah. Yeah, I think then Big Sister, Little Sister did something similar too. I think they did a campaign around that. And why not do the campaign just for the 25th to launch us off into, you know, something spectacular, you know, coming in 2023, and then figure out how we can do it. You know, we might have young sisters doing temporary tattoos that, you know, could be, you know, Mass Women Girls or do whatever, you know. Yeah.
And Jess, I think the side-by-side for the new logo and the 25th is the better way to go than doing an integrated logo, because once you do an integrated logo, you got to go all the way back and do the regular relaunch of the regular logo. I think we should just do it all at once.
And for what it's worth, Shaitia and I had discussed the same. We had also agreed that was our favorite as well. And I think it'll allow us to move a little faster in both the launch of the 25th itself, right? Like recognizing that come the new year, that's just 6 months away. So those marketing materials need to be up and running. And then also the lockups of our others. So MCSW and regional, MCSW and 25th, MCSW and jelly, you know, whatever the logo is, the lockups we can flex through our different identities.
And I would argue though, that though we have a level of control over who goes on a regional commission, I think that they need to retain the ability to have their own identity in their region. And so is there a way to lock up something that's new for MCSW in a way that still allows them to maybe stamp it or associate it with or wrap it, you know, so they can still retain their own visual identity that they want? Like, I don't think we want to come in and say, you got to use this logo and you don't get to use anything else. I mean, the Cape is very different than Western Mass. It's very different than the inner cities, I should say.
So maybe now that Lesley-Ann said that, because I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 11 have logos.
Yeah.
So if we were able to assist the other 6 to create a logo that we can then say, here's the MCSW's logo, because we are, and I always say it, we're the big sisters to the little sisters, right? So the little sisters still have to have their identity, you know.
And I would, for what it's
Yeah.
worth, love to loop them into this conversation. You know, working with Tina, I now want to turn to the regionals as one of our stakeholders. So MCSW staff has met to discuss commissioner input and feedback. And now we move to regionals, or even we were trying to identify some external stakeholders like Jill Ashton, or, you know, others that could maybe give us their insight on what this branding and logo means to them, you know, process though it is, and then ultimately inform that. So I think that I'm thinking of it in 2 ways. The consistency of having all of them is really important to me. I'm trying to frame this as an opportunity for them to enhance their own visibility, the regionals as well. I would never make decisions for them. I'd want this to feel useful for them as well, and have them have a seat throughout this whole process.
With still reminding them that we have the final.
Yeah, yeah. But giving them their own flavor, or their input, or, you know, hearing from them as well.
Because trust me,
all of it
they
hoping to
will
stem from us.
Yeah, because trust me, they will be like, what? Yeah, but that makes sense. It's good. That's good.
I
Yeah.
do think though that we need to be careful, because we need to treat them a little bit as a side project in some respects, because
Yes.
all 5 of them might have logos and the other 6 need logos. We still want them to all look consistent. So those that have 5 logos, we want them to make sure that it works within within the flow that Jess is going to help us come up with. And the 6 that don't, you know, we don't want 5 to look old and 6 to look modern, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And if I'm thinking about this process pragmatically, I think we do have to, by nature of timing, focus on ourselves first, 25th anniversary, get our house in order, and then the rollout of each of those, right? Like, so I'm assuming that maybe I would host a training, or otherwise develop a brand kit or materials for the regionals, so that, you know, they have not only the assets to do it, but also feel as though there's resource and support and help in rolling all of this out. That would be a part of my whole rollout process to them.
Okay.
Although
So Metro West uses ours. So that would be, I think Cape and Islands has their own. So, and I think what you're saying makes sense, Leslie, and that we have a conversation around their logos, look at their logos. And then, so can that conversation, Ellen and Shai, with the regionals be about how to bring their logos into the now for those that have, and then and to assist in creating for the ones that don't have. So that way we're all on the same tugboat at the same, oh, did I just do that?
I loved that.
I love that.
That wasn't on purpose. I do apologize, because believe it or not, I kept saying tugboat. Why is it the word tugboat in my head? But now I remember. So yeah, just so we're all on the same platform at the same time, working around the changes, you know.
And they're going to get a heads up about this at the regional convening. We're going to circulate the survey to them, so they will be in
I
this.
do think though that we need to focus on our own, and if they become a project after that we, you know, need to consider, I just don't want that to derail the process.
And I know Danella and others, you know, everything we need for the 25th is absolutely paramount. So, oh yeah, I see Cape Cod. Yeah.
And they used the blue and the white because they were Cape.
Mm.
I
I thought there was more for the state. Oh, sorry.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry, I was saying, I like the idea of, like the Cape and Islands, the way that they have their region in theirs, and I think is it Essex County that also does it, but it's purple and yellow?
Yeah, I think it's
I wanna
Essex
say it's
that's
Essex
purple and
County.
yellow.
But that's the CC, the Cape Cod is more word mark to me, right? That's just the acronym. Those are just the letters nice and big. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's not the one, then it must be Upper Middlesex. Let me see if I can find it.
I wouldn't
Yeah,
call
I have them all. Hold on, go ahead. I have them all. Go ahead.
I wouldn't call CCISW a word mark. I would
Okay.
call that an acronym.
Hmm.
A word mark helps you identify who you are. CCISW is just an acronym.
Oops.
Which
So,
doesn't convey any additional meaning.
right. The Upper Middlesex wanted to add the yellow because of the suffrage yellow.
Mm.
So they
And I
had the
see they have
purple, white with the
county
yellow.
shape in their logo.
Right.
Theirs feels the closest as far as, to me, looking at it, it looks related to us. Does that make sense? To
Yeah.
me,
Yeah, most of them tried to include their regions. I think Worcester was, hold on, let me tell you Worcester. Let me show you Worcester.
Oh, Hampshire Franklin also took the
Yes.
gender
So everybody,
symbol.
everybody took their regions.
There's what's the one that by me that has the river?
I just put that in the chat. That's Hampshire Franklin.
That's
Right,
Hampshire Franklin.
that one's definitely very different than,
Yes.
yeah, some of them are.
There was something, the Hampshire Franklin, I think I can't remember what their decision. So I'm off. So I'm off on how many. There was a reason behind the river. I can't remember what it was. So Hampshire Franklin with the river. Worcester wanted the W to be the focus. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I was opposite. So 6 have and 5 doesn't. And all of them tried to include their region somehow in their picture. You know, does that help? Just to kind of give an idea, like, yeah. Oh, wait a minute, Berkshire, isn't Berkshire's old? No, Berkshire Regional they didn't do, they kept with they used ours, right? You know, so just an idea. All right, nice.
Well, thank you so much for this feedback. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to join. This is just sort of our initial kickoff. We wanted to make sure we were hearing your voices. Meredith, I'm not sure if you had a chance to take that survey that Shaitia circulated. I can pop the link in again here. But we're going to be resharing the survey and a link to this recording so you can see Jess's presentation.
Okay.
So as always, let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah, I've already taken it.
I love it. Oh, good. Okay, perfect. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it told me you're taking it already.
Any other thoughts before we sign off?
Can I just say one thing other than my
Allison.
apologies for being late? The women's sign, right, on one of them, it looked very much to me like a cross. It was a big, a circle and a big prominent thing on the bottom. And my first thought as a non-Christian was that it looked like a cross.
And is that gender symbol truly as inclusive as it could be, which is in our own?
Right. And is it contemporary enough? I feel like I remember a Mad magazine, and here I am dating myself, a Mad magazine cover with a cartoon where the man, it was an old, like imagine Friar Tuck, sort of a heavy bald guy wearing a cross, and a little kid comes up to him and he's like, "Are you a woman?" And so that's sort of in my brain, but I think it's not contemporary enough in my mind, or it doesn't have enough reference currently. I don't think, in my humble opinion. And forgive me, did we talk about no more purple?
No, we're actually talking about how much we
Somebody,
love her.
don't mute Allison. I was gonna say mute Allison. No, Allison, why not the purple?
No. I personally, I like the purple.
Oh, okay.
I saw blue and yellow, and apologies again for coming in late. I do think that the purple, Michelle Obama's purple dress, red and blue make purple. I do think that's great. I just want to make sure that if we do go with purple, it's not a wimpy color purple. Let it be strong. Let it be less lilac-y and less lavendery.
Jess,
And
do me a favor.
more-
Will you share the recommendation slide one more time, just so that Allison could see that?
Oh,
The-
thank
the-
you. I
that honors
appreciate
the
it.
Purple, but incorporates more.
Once
are
I
some
get past
initial findings.
Thanksgiving, we're gonna be fine at the Jelly Factory. We just gotta get past Thanksgiving.
This is our slide on the findings we've had so far for the branding. Allison, it's nice to meet you. I'm Jess Dawson. It's nice to meet you.
Hi, Jess, Allison Goldberg. Very nice to meet you. Color harmonious, right. Mass.gov Regal Purple. Great. Oh my God, thank you. Okay, what do you need me for?
This was it. We needed your buy-in, and now we're off and running. We wanted you all to feel heard
Fantastic.
and making sure we were incorporating not only internal stakeholders, but external voices as well, and just trying to get ahead of sort of our research and discovery phase so we can just hit the ground running.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. All right,
This
we're
has
going to
been
circulate.
really-
This presentation was recorded, Allison, so we'll share it in full. And let me know if you have any questions.
Fantastic. And Ellen, can we catch up separately on a couple of other things, maybe next week?
Sounds good.
That would be great. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy
you
Thanksgiving.
all.
Thank you all
Thanksgiving.
so
Thank
much for your
you.
time. Thank you. Thank you.